Today we're going to discuss the California PEAD Form. As you know, you're required to submit a PEAD Form every time when you enter a property for showing. Now there are basically three types of PEAD Forms, which I'll show it to you later on. One type of PEAD Form for lease and rental. The other one is for seller occupant. The third one is the visitor PEAD Form. The visitor PEAD Form is the one you're going to be using the most. Okay, without spending any more time explaining, let me just kind of get to the screen where I want you to see the type of forms that is available. Let's do something that is more illustrative. So I am inside a page in the MLS, and this is of course the CRMLS. So this afternoon, I'm going to be taking a buyer of a mobile home to go see a property in the city of Anaheim. So when I open up this page, it shows that it says use PEAD in Glide during COVID-19. Now, Glide is actually a paid subscription, and it is very, very helpful. It will save you a lot of time. I'll show you how it can save you a lot of time in a few minutes. So I'm on this page. In the CRMLS, every single MLS page has a... oh, welcome, Brandon. Okay. All right. Every CRMLS page has a link to Glide. So if I click this button, it will take me to my Glide account. If you have a Glide account, it should take you to your Glide account. Now you can see the property address is shown above, 1949 South Manchester Avenue, number 16. Okay, that's the property address. Number 16 is actually the space number. Okay, so I'm going to complete the PEAD V for this property and then sign the PEAD. Okay, so let me click on that. And then it's going to ask for my buyer's name, right? So I will search buyer. My buyer's name, previously I've already input the buyer's name. So as soon as I click search buyers, my buyer name will show up because I used her for another property. So I'm just going to click her. But if you don't have her name already or his name already, you just go ahead and input it. And then it's going to ask you what properties will your prospect be visiting. Now, because I'm on the MLS page for 1949 South Manchester Avenue, number 16, it automatically gives me this address. So that space saves me time. As you can see, it's a time saver. Now, I don't need to make any change if this is the right address. So this is. Sometimes you might be visiting more than one property. All right. So in this afternoon, I will be visiting more than one property. So I'm going to put add a property here. And let me look into my my list of property that I will be showing to my buyer today. I'm going to go into my email. I sent her some properties yesterday. That was yesterday. I showed her 3 different mobile homes. So the 1949 South Manchester, I already got that one. Okay. And I need to add 2 more properties. So it doesn't hurt to get a few more extra, because if you have them on the PEAD form already, you don't have to write a separate PEAD form for every single property. If you already plan to see several property now, this there are two more that I need to add to my list. One is 215 South Sullivan Lane, number 78. So I'm going to add that to my list right here. It says right here. Okay, so 215 South Sullivan. number 78. And the city name is Santa Ana. So I'm going to input Santa Ana. I'm going to put in the zip code 92704. And notice this one here, it says send an email to listing agent once PEAD is signed. That is very, very important check mark, because if you set everything up, you only have to set it up once and all the listing agents will be receiving the signed PEAD. You see how effective or how powerful this thing is. Whereas if you do it through zip form, or you go into a zip form, you have to send them out individually. So that takes a lot of time. Okay. And you don't really want to do that. Now, if you know the, what I call that, the listing agent's first name and last name, you can input here. Otherwise, don't worry about it, because this is, if the listing is on the MLS, it will automatically find the listing agent's email address and send the listing agent the PID. So second property, I'm going to save that. It's asking for the listing agent's name. Okay. Now, if I want to do that, sure, I need to go inside and look for the listing agent's name. So, and in order to do that, I have to go through the matrix. For example, I will need to go into right here where it says home. I'm going to type 215. Sullivan. Search. And then this is a unit number 78. So I'm going to click that. And I'm going to look for the listing agent's name right here. This is the listing agent's name, Genevieve Regoza. So I'm going to input it right here. And apparently this one, because it's an addition, I will need to find the email. So the email is actually right here. I'm just going to copy that. Copy email address. It's actually Regoza, so I'm going to correct the name. I'm going to put the listing agent's name here. Okay. And then I'm going to save this one. So I want to add one more property. So there are 3 properties that I'm going to take potentially taking my buyer to see this afternoon. So the third one is actually this one right here. That is 1616 South Euclid Street 56. All right. So I'm going to add that. 1616 South Euclid. And it is space number 56. That's Anaheim 92802. So I'm going to put down space 56. Anaheim 2802. Okay. And now I need to go get the person's name. So I come back here to the search page. So 1616. And it's a South Euclid. So Euclid. I'm going to search. What is the space number? Space number 56. So 56 right here. This one right here. So I'm going to click that one. And I'm going to find the person's first name. Alma Michael. So I'm going to put Alma Michael. And then I'm going to copy and paste the person's email here. And copy and paste this email. And I'm going to input it here. And I'm going to save it. Okay. So I'm visiting 3 properties this afternoon. I'm taking my buyers to see this property, 3 properties. So I'm going to click continue. And it will have my name as the agent and my buyer's name. Okay. And of course, if you have any other person who you're bringing, you should have their name here and their email address so they can e-sign the PEAD form. Okay. You're going to click continue. If there are any exceptions to the representation additional terms, which usually you shouldn't have any, if you have any exception to the standard language, you should put it in here. For example, somebody may have been exposed or somebody who has been in contact and all of that. But usually there shouldn't be any. If this person already exposed, he should not be accompanying you to see the property anyway. If this person has been infected with COVID-19, you should not let them go see the property anyway. So there should be nothing here. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and click continue. You see Zip Form Plus, it says account link. My DocuSign account has been linked to, my Glide account has been linked to Zip Form Plus, so it's already linked. So I don't have to do anything. But if it's not linked, you have to link it. Okay, you're going to click continue. All right. So basically, it's generating the PEAD form. So there are 3 PEAD forms that are generated. So essentially, you can have a unique PEAD form for each property. So you don't have to combine all 3. If you do it this way, you're actually generating 3 separate PEAD forms, okay, for each property. So if you like, you can download it, but this will be unsigned. But I want to send it for signature. So basically, I will send all 3 forms for signatures. Now it will come to me for my signature, and it will go to my buyer for her signature. The minute I click send for signature, these 3 forms will go out for signatures. If you click sign later, you can always click sign later if you have other properties you want to add. But for right now, for demonstration, I'm just going to click send for signature. So you need to make sure your DocuSign, now if you don't have a DocuSign account, it might be difficult. Now if you use digital ink, then digital ink is free. DocuSign, you have to subscribe. So if you use digital ink, you want to click right here. Okay. But since I have DocuSign, I will link my DocuSign account to Glide. That way, Glide will set up the DocuSign for me. So I click continue. Now it is actually syncing to DocuSign. All right. Now, once in DocuSign, you can see that there are 3 separate forms to sign, right? Because I set up for 3 separate forms. So, and it's got my name, it's got my address, my email address, it's got my buyer's name and my buyer's email address. So I got 3 forms to DocuSign. They're all set up and ready to go. So all I got to do right now is to click next. And then it's going to take me to this form. You have to set up physically. Actually, the nice thing about using Glide is that it actually set this up for you. So you don't have to physically drag the initial or the signature tabs onto the form. It's already set up for you. So that is also another reason you want to use what I call that. You want to use Glide as opposed to using zip form. Afterwards, I want to show you the long way, the zip form. That way you can appreciate why you want to use Glide. For Glide, it sets up all of these initial tabs for you already, so you don't have to do it. Okay, so you go down, you see everything is set up nicely for you already. And I didn't even have to do any of that. That's all set up by Glide. Okay. Now, one very important one I want to show you is this. For whatever reason, if you go into zip form, the system actually gives you a signature tab for broker for seller, which of course is the wrong tab. Now, if you're not careful, you don't sign at the right place, initial right place. Some agents, when they see that you initial the wrong place, they actually reject your PEAD form. So you don't want the hassle. Probably better to use the Glide. Okay, see Glide, it sets up this initial, and I will be signing that. Another thing nice about Glide is that it's got my license number automatically populated because I asked it asked for my DIE number and I gave it my DIE number. So I don't really have to type anything. I just have to go in and make sure everything looks good. Now, attached to the PEAD form, if you're a visitor, it has this form that is called the Mandatory Government Showing Requirements, including best practices, guidelines, and prevention plan. This is important for listing and buyer's agents because there are some rules that we follow. Now, it says utilize virtual tours as much as possible, which means that if you can avoid showing it physically in person, avoid showing it physically in person. But of course, the buyers sometimes they have to see the inside. Okay, if that's the case, you bring them to see the properties. Now, they don't allow the traditional open houses during the pandemic, so don't try to hold open houses. That's not allowed. Okay. They do allow non-traditional open house. Okay, and there should be a few signs that you're supposed to put at the property. We'll go through the sign afterwards. But I just wanted to go over this prevention plan so you know what it contains and what you need to do. Okay? And what you need to advise your buyer to do. You're supposed to advise your buyer to maintain social distancing, which means that they have to be 6 feet apart. Also, there can only be one group of buyer in the property at one given time. So maximum of one listing agent site representative and one group of buyer at a given time. And also as listing agent, if you look at number 7, it says the listing agents must post the posted rules for entry at the entrance of the property. And I'll show you the posted rules afterwards. Buyers should always be advised to avoid touching anything like handles, switches, pulls, etc. And also the rule says that before the buyer enters the property, they're supposed to sanitize their hands. So bring your sanitizer with you and then spray a few drops in the hands of the buyer that will be going inside. That way, if they do touch something, hopefully there will be no contaminants coming from the buyer's hands. All right, so read this for yourself for the best practices. So I'm going to go through, now this is the second form. So the nice thing about setting up the forms on Glide is that they gave you all the forms all at once to review for signatures. So all I got to do is to make sure, okay, the tabs are there for each page where there's supposed to be tabs. You see everything's there. Everything is set up nicely already if you use Glide. So this is the second form. I just got done reviewing the second form, so I'm going to be reviewing the third form. All right. The form is all set up, so it looks like it's pretty much ready to go. Okay. So all I gotta do is to click the send button. As soon as I click the send button, all 3 forms would have been sent to my buyer for signatures and also to me for signatures. As I can see, my email comes into my mailbox already. So I'm gonna open up my email. And you can see all 3 properties are in this email, DocuSign. Okay, all I gotta do is to click review documents. The system is a little slow. Apologize for that. Now, sometimes if it takes too long, you just go ahead and close it and reopen it. Okay? It could take a long time. So sometimes it might be quicker just to close it and reopen it. And I'm going to close it and reopen it because it's taking too long. All right, let me reopen it. While we're waiting for this to run itself, let's go ahead and look at the MLS listing. That way, okay, it's good now. So let me go ahead and now if I click continue, it will take me to the start button. So I click start, and then it'll take me to the next initial. So initials. There should be 3 initials per form. So this is a second form. Initial. Well, actually 2 initials and 1 signature. Initial, signature, initial. Okay, you see how quickly I'm able to sign all 3 PEAD forms with just 1 DocuSign. It's really a huge advantage because you save so much time using Glide, and it's not very expensive to subscribe to Glide. So I would encourage you to start using Glide for your transaction. And if you're using a transaction coordinator, make sure your transaction coordinator uses Glide. They'll save you a lot of time. So I'm going to click finish. Okay. Now, notice I have signed all 3 forms. The beauty of this is that all 3 forms will be automatically, all 3 signed PEAD forms. Once the buyer and the buyer's agent have both signed, they would all be automatically sent to the listing agent. You see how nice that is? Saves you a lot of time. I don't have to set up emails. It's all sent, okay, automatically. So this is what you need to do to prepare PEAD forms using Glide. Always use Glide unless you don't have a choice. Now, another way to do PEAD form is what I'm going to show you right now without using Glide, okay? Let's see who else did with me. Oh, okay, 10 people with me. That's good. All right, let's go back to a different scene. Go back here. Go back to my zip form. Now, assuming you don't have Glide, okay, you have to do everything from zip form. This is what you're gonna do. Okay, so I think I have this one. So, oh, I don't have that. Okay. All right, forget about that. I just want to show you two other forms. Now earlier, I used a certain type of this PEAD form. As you can see, there are multiple types of PEAD form. Okay, there are basically three types of PEAD form, and we're going to look at the first PEAD form, which is this one right here. The first selection is actually the first type of PEAD form. I just want to open it and show you what it looks like. If you represent the seller or landlord, you probably need to use this PEAD form. It's called PEAD-LR. LR stands for lease rental. So you would put in the property address above, and then you are going to go ahead and put in your name here, and then you're going to click well, actually you don't put your name here because there are only three boxes. One is for landlord lessor, the other one is for tenant lessee, the third one is for occupant. Sometimes an occupant may not be a tenant. So for example, you have two people on the list, but there are two other individuals. There are other individuals that are on the list, not on the list, so they're technically not tenants, but they are occupants. So you need to have them sign as well if you represent the seller or the landlord. And especially if you represent the landlord, that involve tenants and occupants. So, if the landlord wants to put the property up for lease while the tenant's still there, you really should have the tenants and the occupants sign the PEAD forms, and that would be the PEAD-LR form. And then there's actually no places for agent to do anything because this is actually for the landlord, tenant, occupant. There is a place for agent, but it's the initial here where it says broker or agent for tenant, and then broker agent for landlord. Now, since you're the agent for landlord or lessor, you should put your initial here, okay? But there's really no place for you to sign because this form is actually for the landlord and the occupant. That's why it's called the lease/rental property form, the PEAD-LR form. So that's the first category. Now the second category of the PEAD form is actually the seller form or the owner form. Seller occupant. Now this is the second type of PEAD form. I'm going to show you what this one looks like. This one here is a little shorter, okay? You see, my buyer already received the PEAD form. She sent me a text message. She wanted to know if she should sign. Not necessarily. We don't have to see all three, but we should get all three signed just in case. So basically, I wrote back. I told her, I texted back, we should have all three signed just in case. Okay? I mean, you don't have to go, even though you've already signed the PEAD form, but if your buyer don't want to see it, then don't worry about it. It's just a PEAD form. You can actually discard it or delete it if you don't need to use it. But it's always good to be ready because some agents don't let you see the property unless you have the right address on the PEAD form. So just remember that. Other agents simply don't care. Any kind of PEAD form will do. Okay? So it really does depend. This is the second type of PEAD form. This has nothing to do with lease or rental. This is for most likely the sale of property. Sometimes you may need to list a property for sale where there are other family members in the household. For example, seller and their children are still living there, and their children are technically not seller, but if they're over 18 years of age, they have to sign this PEAD form. So it's quite a bit of work, as you can imagine. So without Glide, it's actually a lot of work, and there's a lot of time involved there. So use Glide whenever possible. Okay. All right. Second type of PEAD form has no prevention plan, so we don't include that. Okay. This assumes that they have already signed actually you should provide them with the prevention plan as well, okay, because they're supposed to observe certain guidelines. I don't know why they did not include the prevention plan. They're supposed to include. So now we're going to look at the third kind of PEAD form, which is the one we just signed earlier using Glide, okay, which is number 5 here. Now this is one for the visitor, okay. Now same thing, you're supposed to input the address here. Now the way we're not using Glide at the moment, so you have to physically input the address here. But if you're using Glide, that's automatically populated for you, okay. And yeah, can you imagine you have to do all of this all over again every time if you're not using Glide? That's a lot of work, okay. Using Glide, you can put a lot of properties on. You can input a lot of properties through Glide, and it will populate everything for you. And all you got to do is have to type once. And again, same thing. The signature block will have a place for either the broker or the buyer. So in this case, there's one line for the broker, another line for the buyer. And then the broker or agent for buyer will have the initial right here. Remember, make sure the initial is not the one for the seller, broker, okay? Some agent will reject you on the PEAD form if you got the wrong initial. The problem with zip form is I think there's probably an error in the system. It automatically gives you, sets up the initial for agent for seller, and of course that's the wrong place. Some of our agents made the mistake of initial the wrong place and their PEAD form got rejected, okay? So this is the third category of the PEAD form, which has a prevention plan to it, okay? Now, let's look at the posted notices that I talked to you about earlier. And that's part of the zip form. So you should be able to find the posted notices. Posted rules for entry, actually. It's called posted rules for entry. If you're the listing agent, either for a landlord or for a seller trying to sell their property, this is the form. You're supposed to print them out and post it on the property, preferably at the front entrance. That way everybody entering the property will agree to abide by the posted rules. The social distancing, wearing the face mask, washing the hands with soap or water upon entry. But honestly, better to give them the sanitizer. Spray a few drops on their hands before they enter. Okay, you don't want them to go into the bathroom first thing. That would not be good. Okay, just make sure that you spray some sanitizer on their hands before they enter. I think that's a good practice. Okay, now first page and then the second page must also be posted. You can actually print a whole bunch of them and post it at the property for which you are the listing agent. Okay, so that pretty much concludes today's training.